You want clarity? Talk to God. You want direction? Talk to God. You want peace in the middle of a storm? Strength when you feel weak? Answers when the world is loud? You better start talking to God. But don't just talk. Listen. Don't just speak. Submit. Because this world, it's noisy. It's chaotic. It's hungry for your focus, your energy, your identity. And if you don't anchor yourself in something deeper, something divine, something bigger than what's trending, you'll be blown in every direction but your destiny. That's why you've got to start your day in prayer. Not just for blessings, but for boldness. Not just for comfort, but for courage. Because when you talk to God first, when you make Him the CEO of your thoughts, when you bring your doubt, your plans, your fears, your dreams to Him before the world can touch them, you move differently. You don't move timid. You don't move confused. You don't move looking for man's validation. You move bold, not arrogant, not reckless, but anointed, appointed, directed. And when you've been in the presence of God, you don't walk into rooms wondering if you belong. You walk in knowing you've been sent. People may question you, but your spirit stays still. People may doubt you, but your direction stays focused. Because when you've heard from God, no one else's voice gets the final say. But the problem is, too many people are looking for boldness from the world, from applause, from permission, from likes and follows and reposts and retweets. But you don't need more noise. You need more stillness. You need that quiet place, that early hour, that sacred ground where it's just you, your purpose, and the one who put breath in your lungs. Because if you skip that part, if you go straight from sleep into hustle, straight from exhaustion into execution, without alignment, without covering, without clarity, you'll burn out, you'll lash out, you'll lose yourself trying to keep up with everyone else. That's why you start with God. Not just on the bad days, not just when things fall apart, but every day, every moment, every move. Because when you're led by God, you move boldly. And when you move boldly, people will talk. They'll wonder why you're so calm, why you're so confident, why you're so unbothered when they're losing their minds. And you'll smile, because you know something they don't. You've already had the conversation that matters. You talked to God, you got the assignment, you got the green light, so now you're moving. See, when God gives you a word, you don't need the world's confirmation. You don't need to take a poll. You don't need to check who agrees, because obedience doesn't require consensus. You heard what He said, and that's enough. But most people, they hesitate, they second guess, they let fear shout louder than faith. Why? Because they're trying to move bold without ever talking to the one who gave them the boldness in the first place. Let me be clear. You can't move with power if you don't stay in prayer. You can't walk into battle with confidence if you haven't been on your knees in humility. You want a bold life? Then build it in secret. Build it in prayer. Build it when no one sees. Because public confidence is born in private surrender. And that surrender, that's where you hand over the fear. That's where you release the pressure. That's where you say, God, not my will, your will. And once you do that, now you're dangerous. Now you're steady. Now you're no longer begging for clarity. You're receiving it. Because when God directs your steps, you don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to trust the next step. So take it, and take it boldly, even if they laugh, even if they walk away, even if it doesn't make sense to anybody else, even if you're the only one who sees it. Because when God calls you, He's not calling the crowd. He's calling you. He didn't speak the vision into everyone. He whispered it to you in the silence, in the struggle, in the stillness. And if he gave it to you, he'll guide you through it. But you've got to stop looking around and start looking up. You've got to stop waiting for everyone to clap before you move. You've got to stop living life trying to fit in when you were called to stand out. Let me tell you something. When you move with God, you won't always be understood. You won't always be celebrated. You won't always be popular, but you will be anchored. And that's worth more than likes, more than attention, more than applause. Because when storms come, and they will come, it won't be your followers who save you. It won't be the trends that carry you. It'll be the foundation you built in prayer. That quiet strength, that unseen discipline, that still confidence that comes from knowing, I talked to God this morning, and I know exactly who I am. When you build your day on prayer, you build your life on purpose. You're no longer drifting. You're no longer chasing. You're no longer led by pressure. You're led by peace. But let's get real. Peace doesn't come from the absence of conflict. It comes from the presence of God. Because there will still be storms. There will still be battles. There will still be voices telling you to turn back, to doubt, to quit. And that's exactly why you've got to be bold. Not just bold in your dreams, bold in your faith. Not just bold in your plans, bold in your obedience. You've got to walk into rooms like you were sent there by heaven itself. You've got to carry the fire of someone who's been with God in private. So when you speak in public, your words don't shake. They shift the atmosphere. That kind of presence, it's not talent. It's not charisma. It's not luck. It's anointing. It's divine alignment. It's the strength of someone who stopped asking people for direction because they already got it from God. That's what prayer does. It calibrates your soul. It silences the noise. It gives you clarity when confusion is all around you. And listen, you can have vision, you can have gifts, you can have the perfect strategy, but without the boldness to act, without the courage to move, without the fire to step when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unclear, you'll die with dreams inside you. Dreams God gave you, ideas He whispered to you, assignments He placed on your life. All wasted because fear shouted louder than faith. But that's not who you are anymore. You don't wake up to hesitate. You don't pray just to feel good. You don't ask God for clarity and then ignore His instruction. You move, and you move bold. Even when the resources aren't in place, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed, even when it feels too big for you, you step anyway. Because if God called you to it, then He's already made a way through it. But you've got to move. No more waiting on signs. Faith is the sign. No more waiting for them to support you. God already gave you support in His Word. No more waiting for everything to be perfect. God uses imperfect people to do extraordinary things, but only when they trust Him more than their fear. So go, speak, start, lead, move, not because you've got it all figured out, but because you trust the one who does. Let me ask you something. Why do you keep hesitating? Why do you keep waiting for a moment that's already here? Why do you keep praying for confirmation but ignoring the command? You already heard Him. You already know what's been placed in your spirit. You already know what you're being nudged toward. So what's the delay? Is it fear, insecurity, doubt? Let me tell you what God told me. You don't have to feel ready to move in purpose. You just have to be willing. Because when you're willing, He'll supply the strength. When you're willing, He'll bring the opportunity. When you're willing, He'll make the crooked paths straight. But He's not going to force you. He's not going to drag you. He's not going to beg you to step into the greatness He created you for. That's your move. He gave you the word. He planted the seed. He lit the fire. Now it's on you to walk with it. You're asking God for boldness? Then stop playing small. You're asking God for clarity? Then stop ignoring His voice. You're asking God for favor? Then walk like it's already yours. Because boldness isn't noise. Boldness isn't being the loudest in the room. Boldness is confidence in your calling. It's knowing, I'm not perfect, but I'm positioned. It's trusting that even when the plan isn't clear, the presence of God is. And if He's with you, you're good. You're covered. You're ready. You're equipped. So don't you dare let fear sit in the driver's seat. Don't you dare let comparison talk you out of your assignment. Don't you dare let people who didn't hear what God whispered to you talk you out of it. You're here on purpose. You were born with something this world needs. And if you wait for everyone to understand it before you act, you'll wait your entire life. Because people didn't give you your calling, God did. So stop explaining. Stop apologizing. Stop waiting. You don't need another sign. You need a decision, a commitment, a yes that doesn't care how big the mountain is, because your faith knows how big your God is. Talk to Him, then move. And don't just move. Move bold. Let's get something straight. You're not waiting on a breakthrough. Your breakthrough is waiting on you, waiting on your movement, waiting on your yes, waiting on your obedience, waiting on you to stop shrinking when you should be stepping. You don't need to see the whole map. You just need to trust the one who created the terrain. You don't need every door to open. You just need to walk toward the one He told you to. Because faith isn't passive. It's not a soft whisper. It's not sitting around hoping something good will happen. Faith is action. Faith is bold. Faith moves even when the ground looks shaky. But you can't move bold if you don't know who sent you. That's why it all starts with prayer, with alignment, with authority, not the kind the world gives, but the kind that comes from heaven. Because when God breathes on your vision, when He anoints your purpose, you carry something that can't be explained, only experienced. That's why people feel something when you walk in the room. That's why you don't fit in like you used to. That's why doors open when they shouldn't. That's why hell gets nervous when you stop talking about it and start walking in it. You've been quiet too long. You've played it safe too long. You've waited for confirmation after confirmation while purpose is screaming from the inside, let's go. And now it's time. It's time to stop doubting your voice. It's time to stop asking if you're good enough. It's time to stop pretending that you don't know what God placed inside you. Because you know, you've always known. Now you just have to stop playing small to keep people comfortable. You were called to be bold. Not reckless, not prideful, but bold. Bold enough to lead. Bold enough to leave. Bold enough to walk away from anything that distracts you from God's assignment. And yes, people will question it. Let them. People will talk. Let them. They weren't on the line when God gave you the word. They weren't in the room when you cried out and He answered. So stop giving your peace to people who never helped build it. You prayed for this, you asked for clarity, and now that He's giving it, don't fumble the instruction. Talk to God, then move bold, because where He's taking you, you can't get there walking timid. You ever notice how doubt gets loudest right before you take the next step? You finally get the courage to start that business, and fear whispers, what if you fail? You decide to cut ties with toxic relationships, and fear says, what if you end up alone? You begin to walk in purpose, and fear shouts, who do you think you are? But let me tell you something, fear is a liar, and doubt is a thief, and both of them answer to God, because when you walk with God, you move with authority, not approval. You don't need everyone to understand your calling. You don't need permission from people who don't pray. You don't need validation from people who haven't seen what you've survived. You move bold, not because you're fearless, but because your faith is louder than your fear. And that kind of boldness, it's different, it's quiet, it's unshakable, and it doesn't need to post every win. It doesn't need to prove anything to anybody, because it's built in obedience, not ego. You know who you are. You know what God told you. You know the calling on your life, and that's why you're moving different now. That's why you're not chasing trends, and that's why you're not forcing doors anymore. That's why you're not begging for seats at tables that weren't built with you in mind. You're building your own, with God as your architect, with prayer as your foundation, with obedience as your compass. And now that you've seen what alignment feels like, you can't go back to chaos. Now that you've felt what clarity sounds like, you can't go back to confusion. Now that you've learned what God's voice sounds like, you're no longer moved by noise. This is the shift. This is the moment where you stop looking around and start looking within. Where you stop asking for signs and start becoming one. A sign that peace is possible, that boldness is holy, that obedience is powerful. You don't need to rush. You don't need to compete. You just need to keep listening, keep praying, keep stepping, because when you talk to God and move bold, you don't just change your life. You change generations. You set a new tone, you break cycles, you build legacies, and the people who doubted you, they